Murad Hudavendigar. Sultan al-Guzat vel Mujahideen, who turned the Ottoman Empire, which he took over as a principality, into a state. The first and only Ottoman ruler to die on the battlefield. The Sultan who became a martyr while he was a veteran. Murad Khan, who was the governor of the Bursa Sanjak, had personally contributed to the conquests in the places where he was assigned by his father Orhan Gazi during his princedom, and received the title of Ghazi. Orhan Bey wanted to leave the administration of the state to his son Shahzadeh Murad in the last years of his life, when he was getting weaker and weaker and wanted to spend himself in worship and prayer. For this purpose, he called his prince and asked him to bring order to the affairs of the state and listen to the wishes of the people. He was sent to Rumelia, which had been left without a head since the death of his brother Suleiman Pasha, the head of Rumelia, and he was put in charge of the Arkanchi Beys. When Murad Khan went to Rumelia, he visited his brother's grave and distributed gifts in his favor. He then embarked on jihad and added victories to his brother's glorious victories. After Bentus, Cholu, Dimetoka, Burgaz and Keshan, Murad Khan and his raiders flowed like seas towards Edirne. The Tekfuru of Edirne, Andarin, assembled a large army and welcomed the Ottoman soldiers at Sazladere. However, he could not stand against the Mujahideen, who came with the love of conquest and expedition and retreated into the city. When he realized that it was a war he could not win, he gathered all his valuable goods, boarded a ship and fled to Enez over the Evros River with his family. The people, who were aware of this situation, gave their emancipation and surrendered the city to Murad Khan. Ottoman subjects from Anatolia were settled here and a policy of homelandization was implemented. This beautiful city, which was to be stamped with the Turkish Islamic stamp, would soon become the chief city of Ali Osman. The news of this conquest brought great peace to Orhan Bey's heart. He felt that he was living his last days. Therefore, he called his son to his presence one last time and gave him advice. Son, do not be proud of the splendor of your reign. Remember that the world was not even left to Solomon. Every worldly reign is mortal, but life is a great opportunity for everyone. Make the most of this opportunity to serve in the way of Allah, and to be the recipient of the intercession of the Prophet, peace be upon him. If you look at the world with the measure of the hereafter, you will see that it is not worth sacrificing the eternal bliss of the hereafter. Son, the Christians of Rumelia will not rest easy. You walk that way. Either conquer Constantinople or prepare to conquer it. Try to get along well with the other Turkish beys. Even if the people want us, the beys do not want to give up their principalities. They will go on for a while, and then they will fall into your palm like a fruit that has been eaten. If there is no trouble in Anatolia, you can easily manage your business in Rumelia. For this, try not to disturb the silence of Anatolia. My heavenly father Osman Gazi made a handful of land consisting of Soyut and Domanic, a powerful principality, in a short time with this policy. With the permission of Allah, we have turned the principality into a sultanate. You will take it further. It is not enough for the Ottomans to rule over 2 continents. Because the cause of the divine word of Allah is too big to fit on 2 continents. We are the heirs of Rome as we are the heirs of the Seljuks. Son, do not deviate from the Quran. Rule with justice, take care of the veterans and feed the poor. Consider it an honor to personally serve those who serve the religion. Do not delay in punishing wrongdoers. Ensure the order of the world in this way so that you will continue to reign. We have reached the end of the road and you are at the beginning. May Allah Almighty make your reign blessed. Not long after this advice, Orhan Gazi was sent to eternal life. At the age of 36, Prince Murat ascended the throne with the great sadness and pain in his heart caused by the loss of his father. Now the era of Muradi Hudavendiga was beginning. Murad Khan was a glorious, veteran, martyred Ottoman Sultan who had personally participated in 37 battles during his 27-year reign and had never been defeated. Karamanids and the surrounding beys who wanted to take advantage of the death of Orhan Gazi, the most powerful bey in Anatolia, moved to plunder the Ottoman lands. In Ankara, the Ahis rejected the Ottoman rulers. Murad Khan first marched on Eregli, one of the last remaining Roman territories in Anatolia. Then he marched to Ankara and annexed these lands to the Ottoman Empire. The Ahis in Ankara feared for their lives and apologized to the Sultan. Their apology was accepted. Then Murad Khan marched against the Karamanids who plundered the lands. Murad Khan, an experienced commander, pushed the Karamanids back from the Ottoman lands in a short time. Worried about their safety, the Karamanids made peace with the Sultan and retreated. Murad Khan wanted to continue the conquest in Rumelia rapidly. He went to Rumelia with Lala Shahin Pasha, who was given the rank of the first Beylerbeyi. In order to protect Edirne from the dangers coming from the Merish River, he first assigned Evrenos Bey for the conquest of Gümülcine and its surroundings in the south, and Lala Shahin Pasha for the conquest of Zagra and the places in the north. These attempts were successful. Murad Khan and his commanders added new territories to the Islamic lands and established or reconstructed new cities through reconstruction activities. The conquests of Zagra, Gümülcine and Vardar in Bulgaria delighted Hunkar Gazi. On his return to Bursa, he received the news that Lala Shahin had marched to Plovdiv and conquered the city. Some of the frightened people gathered everything they had and migrated to the Serbian country. The Tekfur of Plovdiv complained to the Serbian king about Lala Shahin Pasha, who had spent a lot of money on the reconstruction of the city. He sowed seeds of discord, saying that if no action was taken against the Ottomans, they would be next. The Serbian king was aware of the seriousness of the situation. He had to recapture Plovdiv and Edirne without losing time and expel the Turks from Rumelia. He announced to the kings of Wallachia, Bosnia and Hungary that he needed to roll up his sleeves for this. It was soon decided to form a crusader army under the leadership of the papacy. Meanwhile, Eastern Rome, fearing all these Islamic conquests, felt obliged to make a peace treaty with the Ottomans. According to the agreement signed in 1663, Rome, which was bound to the Ottomans by paying taxes, could not claim rights to the lands conquered by the Ottomans, would not form alliances with any state against the Ottomans, and would send troops if the Ottomans asked for them. The Serbian Empire, the Hungarian Kingdom, the Bulgarian Empire, the Principality of Wallachia and the Principality of Bosnia joined the Crusader army, gathered with the encouragement of Pope Urban V. These 5 states formed a large army in a short time and set out for Edirne under the leadership of the Hungarian King Lajos. Their number is reported to be between 60,000 and 100,000, although sources differ. As soon as Lala Shahin Pasha, the guard of Edirne, heard about the situation, he sent word to the Sultan. The enemy army had spread like a flood and traveled along the Meriç without any serious resistance. Upon receiving these disastrous news, Lala Shahin Pasha immediately sent a reconnaissance army of 4,000 men under the command of Haçi İlbey. According to the scouts, an army 5 to 10 times the size of the Ottoman army was approaching Edirne. Lala Shahin Pasha did not have enough soldiers in Edirne to resist this crusader army. It was also impossible for Murad Khan to gather his troops in Anatolia in such a short time. Lala Shahin Pasha would have to fight against this crusading army without any support. To retreat and flee for fear of the enemy would have resulted in the complete loss of the Greek hand, and all the years of struggle would have been in vain. So Shahin Pasha had to negotiate with the beys around him and take a difficult decision. Instead of mounting a defense in Edirne, he was going to raid the enemy army and neutralize the enemy. During this raid, he bowed before Allah, Esubareti, and prayed. He begged his Lord for strength and power to break the enemy's power. The enemy, on the other hand, thought that such an easy advance in the Ottoman lands was a victory. They decided to stay somewhere near Edirne. The next day, they would set out to take Edirne. For this, they had great confidence in their crowded army and were already organizing parties as if they were victorious. On this night of drunken revelry, while some were asleep and some were having fun, suddenly, the sound of takbirs filled the air. The raid, which is referred to in the sources as the Serbian border, was now beginning. At first, the sound of drums and trumpets played by the veterans terrified the enemy. Hachi Ilbey divided his army of 4,000 men into 4 separate columns and entered the enemy from 4 different sides. The Crusaders, who were suddenly confronted with the swords of the Ottomans, could not even understand which side the enemy was coming from because they were drunk. They even mistook each other for enemies. Most of those who were not drunk and tried to save their lives fell into the Evros and drowned. That night was a very bloody night for the Crusaders. When the sun came up, it was a bloodbath. Many prisoners were taken from the Crusader army. Only a handful of soldiers managed to save themselves. King Lajos of Hungary was among those who managed to save his life. He attributed his salvation to his devotion to the Virgin Mary, and as soon as he returned, he built a church for Shukru Eda. Thus, the crusade, which was planned to expel the Turks from Rumelia, was eliminated with the blessed victory of Lala Shahin Pasha and his Mujahideen. In this way, the presence of the Turks in Rumelia had become more solidified. Meanwhile, the good news that came to Murad Khan, who had captured Biga and its surroundings, pleased the Sultan very much. After this battle, he had made up his mind to make Edirne his capital. From a principality, the Ottoman Empire was rapidly becoming a state that terrified its enemies. After Muradi Hudavendigar ascended the throne, he settled the disturbances in Anatolia and returned to Bursa. Meanwhile, he was on his way upon the news that the Crusaders were on their way to Edirne. However, when he received the news that Lala Shahin Pasha had defeated the Crusaders in a night raid, he did not need to cross to Rumelia and headed to Biga. At that time, Biga was in the hands of Catalans. The Catalans were a threat to the Ottomans in the rear with their pirate ships. Calculating this, Sultan Murad besieged Biga by land and sea and conquered it in a short time. From there, he moved on to Bursa and had a mosque built in Bilecik and a tekke built in Yenisehir as a token of gratitude for his victory in Serbian Sardan. Murad Khan, who understood the politics of the time very well and determined what the future of the Ottoman Empire depended on as well and accurately as he did, saw the victory in the Serbian War not as an occasion for pride, but as a warning sign. More than the Christian allies who had confronted the Ottomans in the Serbian campaign could have tried to stop the Ottoman advance and expel the Turks from Rumelia, he had to be prepared to avert these dangers beforehand or return to Anatolia to stay out of danger. Murad Khan knew very well that the Ottoman Empire could not become a global power as long as it remained Asian. A bright future for the state he led was possible by holding on, settling and advancing further in Rumelia. If it was to advance further in Rumelia, it was necessary to concentrate its central weight in Rumelia. For this reason, Sultan Murad decided that it was time to transfer the military organization of the state from Bursa to Edirne, and in the spring of 1366, he moved to Rumelia. As soon as he arrived in Rumelia, the Sultan ordered the construction of a palace in Edirne. He also ordered the establishment of a mosque and madrasas right next to the palace. Thus, Edirne became the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. While in Edirne, Sultan Murad started to consult with his beys about the conquest of Rumelia. A year earlier, Bulgaria had been divided into 4 parts upon the death of Tsar Alexander, the ruler of the Bulgarian Tsardom. Alexander's eldest son, Ivan, ruled the western part of Bulgaria. His center was the city of Vidin. His younger son, Shishman, ruled central and southern Bulgaria, which included Tarnovo, Nibolu, Yambolu, Sofia, and Silistre. His center was also in Tarnovo. Dobrović, one of the Bulgarian despots, ruled Dobruja starting from Varna, while Prince Constantine owned the northern part of eastern Macedonia. This was a good opportunity for the Ottomans. Sultan Murad expressed the necessity to take advantage of this weakness of the Bulgarian state. The territory of Serbia, the most powerful state in the Balkans, had disintegrated after the death of Stefan Dusan. Moreover, the Serbs' power had weakened even more after the great defeat they had suffered in the 1364 Battle of the Serbian border. Therefore, the lands of Serbia were among the first targets of Sultan Murad. There was a peace treaty between Eastern Rome and the Ottomans. For this reason, Emperor Ioannis could not do anything openly against the Ottomans, but he did not hesitate to provoke others underhandedly. The Roman emperor, whose internal and external problems grew like a mountain, was writing letters to Europe in order to find crusader support against the Ottomans. As a result of these efforts, the emperor's uncle Savocantu VI Amadeo, with the encouragement of the Pope, organized a naval fleet and took action against the Ottomans. He besieged the city of Gallipoli with a small crusader army under his command. Taking advantage of the Turks' inexperience at sea, he captured Gallipoli after a short resistance and handed the city over to the Roman emperor. Gallipoli, an important transit point connecting the Ottoman lands of Anatolia and Rumelia, was thus lost. Sultan Murad was furious at this news. Rome could not form an alliance with any state against the Ottomans, but the emperor had obtained Gallipoli in secret agreement with the Crusaders and had broken this agreement. Sultan Murad met with the emperor and demanded the immediate return of Gallipoli to the Ottomans. The emperor tried to stall Sultan Murad in the face of this demand. Sultan Murad then personally led the army and marched towards the Roman capital of Constantinople. As a result of this campaign, Inces, Tsatalka, and 2 fortresses near Küçükçekmece were easily conquered. When the raids continued as far as Karaburun and Kilyos, the people of Constantinople were terrified. Meanwhile, Timurtaş Pasha, who had rendered valuable services in the Rumelia campaign, had captured Kızıl Ağaç and Yanbolu in Bulgaria. The northern front of the 4-pronged Rumelia campaign, which Sultan Murad had led in accordance with a uniform plan, belonged to Kara Timurtaş Pasha. As a result of the operations of the eastern branch, which was personally led by Sultan Murad, the area from Kirk Kilise, Vize and Susebolu to Küçükçekmece was conquered. Evronis Bey, who commanded the western column, was busy in Macedonia. Lala Shahin Pasha, who was assigned to the northwestern front, went to Bulgaria and took the city with Iman. Thus, the conquest of Sofia was one step closer. Then, the city of Samarkand, which had important iron mines, was also conquered by Lala Shahin Pasha. Thus, between 1366 and 1369, a second important move was made in the conquests of Rumelia, and significant progress was made in preparing the ground that would make it possible for the Turks to settle in Rumelia. Realizing that he had no chance against the Ottomans, the Bulgarian king Shishman was forced to accept Ottoman protection and to pay taxes when he realized that he could not regain the lands he had lost. Thus, a significant part of the Bulgarian territory came under Ottoman rule. This mobility in Thrace and Sultan Murad's entry as far as the small draw caused Eastern Rome to panic. Emperor Ioannis, who was rapidly losing his lands, decided to go to Western Rome to seek support against the Ottomans, even at the cost of recognizing Catholicism. He left his eldest son Andronik as his deputy and traveled to Rome by sea. In Rome, in the presence of Pope Urban V and the cardinals, he renounced orthodoxy and accepted Catholicism. The Pope declared that the Eastern Roman Emperor had accepted Catholicism and asked all Greek priests to follow the Emperor. However, since the Orthodox Church did not heed the Pope's requests and recommendations, nothing positive came out of all these efforts. On his return to Rome, Ioannis traveled to the major centers of Europe and received many promises of help. On his way, he was arrested by the Venetians because of his debt to the Venetians. In the 13th century, the most powerful state in the Balkans was the Kingdom of Serbia. After the death of Stefan Dušan in 1355, who had tried to inherit the Eastern Roman Empire and was for a while known as the King of Serbs and Greeks, the state was weakened and small independent dominions were formed. Dušan's designated heir, King Uroš, fled to Upper Serbia after the Ottoman conquest of Plovdiv. Because of his administrative and military failures, he went down in history as the weak Uroš. The elder brother, Vukašin, took over the Macedonian region and proclaimed himself King of Serbia. His brother Uglješa ruled Ceres. Konstantin Dejanović and his brother Dragaš, from the same family, ruled the northern lands, the center of which was Konstantin. This weakening of the Serbian kingdom, which was a powerful state, relieved Eastern Rome. It also had a good effect on the Ottoman conquest policies in the Balkans. One of the Ottoman neighbors was the Despotate of Ceres. Uglješa could not digest the defeat at the Battle of Serbian Sardinia. Now he was a neighbor of the Ottomans, and the threatening actions of the Ottomans started to disturb him. Therefore, he met with his brother, King Vukašin of Serbia. Vukašin, who was himself disturbed by the activities of the Turks in Thrace, supported his brother and promised to personally join the campaign against the Ottomans. Thus, they agreed to avenge the Serbian border and expel the Turks from Thrace. Ugljesha's territory also bordered Eastern Rome. He wanted to take them with him in his alliance against the Turks. Eastern Rome could not miss the opportunity to stand by the forces that wanted to destroy the great enemy. Murad Khan's advance to Küçükçekmece in his last campaign could have resulted in the fall of the capital Constantinople in his next campaign. For this reason, Andronik, the deputy of Emperor Ioannis, who was imprisoned in Venice, agreed to join this alliance without consulting the emperor. In May the 3rd, 7th, the two countries united their armies to drive the common enemy out of this land. When the calendars show September then Kising's third faith, Serbian and Greek forces mobilized to expel the Turks from Thrace. According to Western sources, their army numbered 60,000. The army easily entered the Ottoman territory and crossed the Merish River without any resistance, as it had done in the Battle of Serbian Sardanis. Meanwhile, when Leyla Shahin Pasha, who was in charge of protecting Edirne, heard that the alliance army was on its way, he sent a message to the Sultan in Anatolia and asked for help. Ghazi Murad Khan gathered his Anatolian forces and set off. Although he traveled in a short time and reached the Dardanelles like the wind, he could not cross it, because the city of Gallipoli and the Dardanelles were in the hands of Eastern Rome, which was allied with the Serbs. It became impossible for Murad Khan to overcome the Roman ships in the strait and cross to the other side. Leyla Shahin Pasha would again have to defend the city alone, without any support from Anatolia. Therefore, Shahin Pasha assigned Hacı İlbey, the victorious commander of the Battle of Sırpsındır, as a scout and placed a vanguard of 800 men under his command. The main army was to meet the enemy in front of Edirne. In the meantime, the enemy army reached Çirmen in a short time and stopped to spend the night in Çirmen Plain. Seeing that the enemy was near Edirne, Hacı İlbey sent spies into the enemy camp and analyzed their situation. The Tifak army seemed to have learned no lessons from the defeat at Serbian Sinchuk 7 years earlier. Hacı İlbey was aware that with 800 men, it would be impossible to destroy this large army. That was not his mission anyway. However, if he could destroy the army commanders by storming the camp with a sudden raid and entering their tents, he could leave the army without a head and thus perhaps have a chance of victory. With this plan in mind, Hacı İlbey first placed drummers on the hills. Since it was not possible to survive such a crowded army, the soldiers exchanged farewells with each other and waited for the sound of the charge. Finally, on Hacı İlbey's order, the attack trumpets and drums began to be played. 800 soldiers attacked in order to be martyred. The Crusader army was stunned by the sounds of drums, trumpets and horses coming from all four sides. On this night, when most of them were asleep and the sentries were drunk, the enemy soldiers who had been raided did not know what to do. They could not distinguish their enemy in the darkness. The drums beating from the hills gave the impression that the Ottomans were outnumbered. A great fear arose in the hearts of the enemy army. The Turkish soldiers especially targeted the tents of the commanders in order to break the moral strength of the other soldiers. Some fled for their lives towards the Evros River. The despot of Serez, Uglješa, was killed in his tent by the Mujahideen. The Serbian king Vukasin was trying to escape with a few of his men. Thus, the soldiers of the alliance army, left without a head, stopped fighting and started to flee en masse towards the Evros River. While most of the chase soldiers were killed, many of them drowned in the Evros River. King Vukasin, who managed to escape, was killed by his servant on the way back. The king's brother Gojka drowned in the Evros River while fleeing. It is said that at sunrise after this battle, the Evros River was dyed red with the blood of the dead enemy soldiers. Ottoman raiders captured many booty and prisoners that day. They went to Edirne with the spoils and captives to announce the victory. After this victory, in which the Serbian king also died, the eastern borders of Serbia were left headless and open against the Ottomans. For this reason, Turkish raids extending to Ustruma, along the Vardar River, and even as far as Ohrid were easily carried out. As a result of these raids, the Serbian princes in the Macedonian region, King Marko, son of Vukashi, the despot Gragas and his brother Constantine were forced to submit to Ghazi Murad Khan and accepted Ottoman protection. Thus, the Ottoman borders extended as far as Albania in the west and the territory of the Serbian despot Lazar in the north. Finally, Lazar, the despot of northern Serbia, realizing that he could no longer resist and overcome the Turks, recognized the Turkish protectorate and agreed to pay taxes and soldiers. Thus, the entire territory of Serbia came under Ottoman rule within a short period of 1 or 2 years. The aim of the Ottoman conquest in Rumelia was not to gain colonies, but to make these lands a homeland. For this reason, Sultan Murad did not carry out his conquest with the swiftness of a passing storm. He realized the importance of representation in order to hold on in Rumelia. In order to establish this stability, immigrants were immediately brought from Anatolia and settled here. For this reason, when the conquest of Macedonia was completed, Sultan Murad stopped the campaign for a while. Organizations were made in Rumelia and fundamental measures were taken for the representation of these regions. The construction of mosques, lodges and dervish lodges, the establishment of the Kapakulu cavalry, the organization of fiefs, and the establishment of the Vojnuk organization were carried out. Meanwhile, Emperor Ioannis, who had been imprisoned in Venice for 2 years, somehow found the opportunity to pay his debts and return to Constantinople. When he received the news of what had happened in his absence, all hope was lost and he had no choice but to make a treaty with the Ottomans. According to the agreement, the conquered lands in Thrace were to be given to the Ottomans, while the remaining Eastern Roman lands were to remain untouched. When the Ottomans asked for soldiers, Rome would send them. In addition, 7,500 Venetian gold tribute was to be paid annually. Thus, Gallipoli, which was the gateway to the lands of Rumelia, was once again in the hands of the Ottomans, and the passage between the two lands became easier. It was Emperor Jonas's misfortune that he had to submit to his two greatest enemies one after the other, the Pope for nothing, and the growing and powerful Ottomans. With the Ottoman borders extending to Albania in the west and Serbia in the north, and the states of Serbia and Bulgaria becoming Ottoman vassals, the political and military power of the Ottomans was consolidated. The struggle for the reign of the Paleologoses in the Eastern Roman center, the Venetians being at war with the Genoese and Hungarians, and the lack of any possibility of an uprising in the Ottoman territories conquered in Rumelia, gave Sultan Murad the opportunity to focus his attention on Anatolia. Sultan Murad had not attempted to expand in Anatolia since the recapture of Ankara in 1360. In the early years of Sultan Murad's reign, the Germian Principality, one of the neighbors in Anatolia, was almost as powerful as the Ottomans. Therefore, Murad I did not want to clash with Germian in order to expand in Anatolia. In fact, he was also fulfilling the will of his father Orhan Gazi and trying to keep Anatolia quiet for the conquests in Rumelia. Now, the Ottoman influence and power had increased in the conquests in Rumelia, and the Germianids had risen to a level to be feared. Moreover, the state that the Germian Principality really feared was the Karaman Principality. In the meantime, the Germian Principality had been subjected to threats and pressure from the Karamanids because it had helped the Hamid Principality against the Karamanids. Karamanids were the most important and powerful of the Anatolian principalities during the foundation of the Ottoman Empire. After they fully dominated Konya, they acted as the heirs of the Seljuks, exerting pressure on the Anatolian principalities and seeking legitimacy that they should be subordinated to them. The Karamanids were not descended from Seljuks. This claim was merely an expression of a political inheritance. In 1361, with the accession of Alauddin Ali Bey to the Karamanid throne, a new era began in the history of the Karamanids. This period also marked a different era for the Ottoman Empire, which had managed to consolidate its power to a considerable extent. Indeed, the first serious political relations between the Ottomans and the Karamanids dated back to this time. In 1366, Sultan Murad wrote a letter to Alauddin Ali Bey to inform him that he had crossed to the Rumelia side for the conquest of Rumelia and even married his daughter Nefisi Sultan to Alauddin Ali Bey and tried to establish friendly relations with the Karamanids in order to keep Anatolia quiet. However, these two states, which were not static like the other principalities in Anatolia but expanding day by day, could not be expected not to be rivals under these circumstances. The small principalities, which were apparently uncomfortable with the expansion policies of both states, would play a key role in the relations and conflicts between these two powers. The Karamanids not only did not hold back from claiming rights over other principalities, but also frequently encroached on the lands of their neighbors, the Jermian Beys, whenever they had the opportunity. Realizing that they would be lost between these two states, Süleyman Shah of Germian, rather than submitting to the Karamanids, thought it would be better to rely on the Ottomans, who were growing stronger day by day, establishing good relations with all Turkish beys, winning continuous victories over Christian countries, and whose future was seen as secure and solid to ensure the survival of their dynasty. Süleyman Shah's idea was to offer his daughter Devlet Hatun in marriage to Sultan Murad's prince Bayezid in order to establish a strong bond with the Ottomans and thus establish kinship with them. Finally, the decision was made and Süleyman Shah sent a respected man named Ishak Faki with precious gifts to Sultan Murad in Edirne. He requested the marriage of his daughter Devlet Hatun to Prince Bayezid and the acceptance of the city of Kütahya, the towns of Simav, the castles of Erigos and Tavşanlı as her dowry. Since Sultan Murad wanted to be free and safe in Anatolia for his planned campaign in Rumelia, he gladly accepted Süleyman Shah's offer. Sultan Murad immediately left Edirne for Bursa, and a grand wedding ceremony was held. This wedding ceremony for Prince Bayezid was the first lavish ceremony of the Ottomans. On this occasion, the Ottoman territory in Anatolia expanded to include Kütahya, Simav, Erigos and Tavşanlı. Kütahya, the largest city and the center of the Germian Principality, was turned into an Ottoman Sanjak, and the Sanjak Principality was assigned to Prince Bayezid. Thus, the Ottomans were bordering with the Hamidoğulları Principality. At this time, Kemalettin Hüseyin Bey was at the head of the Hamid Principality. Kemalettin Bey realized that fighting with the Ottomans would not bring him any good. For this reason, Sultan Murad, who came to Kütahya after the wedding of his son, asked Kemalettin Bey to sell some of the lands in his possession, and the ruler of the Hamid Principality accepted this request. Thus, Yalvats, Karaağaç, Beyşehir, Seydişehir, Isparta and Akşehir, which constituted the most beautiful parts of his homeland, were sold to the Ottomans for 8,000 gold coins. When these purchases were added to the lands given as the dowry of Devlet Hatun, the daughter of a Jermian, the Ottoman territory in Anatolia grew considerably and almost reached the Mediterranean coast. The capture of these cities without bloodshed was a distinct gain and success for the Ottomans. As the Ottoman territory grew and reached the Karaman border, the suspicions of the sons of Karaman increased. The growing strength of the Ottomans with their conquest in Rumelia was already frightening the sons of Karaman. The Karamanids, who did not want the Ottomans to grow, wanted to seize the lands obtained from Jeremian and Hamid principalities for themselves, and for this purpose, they were looking to take advantage of Sultan Murad's busyness in Rumelia. Finally, Al-Din Ali Bey, the son of Karaman, took action in 1386 while Sultan Murad was in Rumelia and occupied the lands purchased with money from the Hamid Beylik. When the news reached Sultan Murad, he was furious. He immediately ordered the army to mobilize. In addition to the Rumelia army, soldiers were also requested from the vassal states. Upon this, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Eastern Rome sent troops to the Ottomans. Sultan Murad left Chandala Halil Hayreddin Pasha in Rumelia and moved to Anatolia with his army. Sultan Murad's immediate move to Anatolia and the rapid gathering of the Ottoman army frightened the son of Karaman, so he sent an envoy to Sultan Murad and apologized to the Ottoman ruler after meeting with the Turkmen, Turgut, Tatar, and Varsak chiefs in Umeri. Murad Khan, on the other hand, angered by being shot from behind while fighting in Rumelia and not trusting the word of Karaman's son, responded to the envoy and did not give up the battle. Then Sultan Murad advanced to Karaman with his army. The Karaman envoy came and informed his lord about the situation. Upon receiving the news, the son of Karaman immediately called his beys and informed them of the situation. Huzur, son of Samagar, Teberuk, Ali, son of Babuk, Pir Ali, son of Bega, kissed his skirt and said that they were with him. When Aladdin Bey asked the envoy the number of Ottoman soldiers, he learned that it was 70,000. Thereupon the son of Karaman was relieved that his own army was more than him. Eventually, the two armies came face to face in the region called Frankia Zisi. Sultan Murad was at the center of the Ottoman army. He placed the foot soldiers in front and the horsemen in the rear. In front of him, Kara Timurtash Pasha was at the head of the Jeremian army. Thus, the main central force was gathered here. His eldest son, Prince Bayezid, led the Kastamonu, Serbian and Greek forces on the left flank. His younger son, Prince Jakub, was at the head of the Hamid Beylik soldiers and Bulgarian forces on the right flank. The Karaman army was composed of Mongol, Turkish, Varsak, Turgut, and Baybur horsemen. At the center of the army was Aladdin Bey with the Karaman soldiers. On the left flank, Samagar led the Mongol and Turkmen horsemen. On the right flank, Savcı Aga led the Varsak, Baybur, and Turgut horsemen. Sources put the number of armies on both sides at 70,000 or more, while modern historians put the number at 20,000. What broke the mutual silence of the two sides was the attacking trumpets of the sons of Karaman. Mongol and Turkmen horsemen under Samagar attacked from the left flank. They were followed by the Karaman sons Aladdin and Savcı Aga. The Karaman armies fiercely attacked the Ottoman center. A fierce fight broke out here. The mounted archers of the Karaman army showered the Ottoman troops with arrows and inflicted great casualties. Sultan Murad was sending reinforcements from the center, but if nothing was done against the archers, the Ottoman center line could collapse. The Ottoman soldiers were falling apart in the face of these arrows. Realizing the situation, Prince Bayezid could not stand still. He asked his father for permission to destroy the archers. Realizing that the situation was critical, Sultan Murad gave him permission. Thereupon, Prince Bayezid left the left flank to Firuz Bey, and like a bolt of lightning, he charged towards the archers in the rear of the Karaman army. At this point, speed was of the essence, because Timurtash Pasha's forces were beginning to show signs of deterioration. Pasha was shouting, "Bayezid is coming, Bayezid is coming," to prevent his army from breaking down. Upon seeing the banners of Prince Bayezid, the soldiers found courage again and continued the struggle. Prince Bayezid was hunting the archers of the Karaman army one by one and clearing the battlefield by mowing them down. Bayezid's attack gave the Ottoman soldiers an opportunity to fight. Then, on the Sultan's orders, Prince Yaqub and Hoja Firuz Bey rushed out from the flanks and attacked. At this point, the sons of Karaman were already surrounded by the Ottomans. Bayezid's elimination of the Mongol archers, the most effective force of the sons of Karaman, was a great blow to the sons of Karaman. Realizing that he was surrounded by the Ottoman army, Samagar became frightened and withdrew from the battle with his soldiers. With his withdrawal, Savchiaga also fled from the battlefield without informing the son of Karaman. Thus, Aladdin Bey, the son of Karaman, was left alone. At this point, he no longer had a chance to win, so he too withdrew and left the battlefield. Thus, the battle ended with a decisive Ottoman victory. The soldiers who saw the banners of Prince Bayezid, who had seen the greatest service in this war, flying from one front to another, nicknamed him Yildirim because of his speed. Thus, Prince Bayezid went down in history as Yildirim Bayezid. The defeated Aladdin Bey fled and retreated to Konya Castle. Sultan Murad, who followed him, started to storm the castle. Although the son of Karaman was devastated and sent an envoy, Sultan Murad did not accept it. Aladdin Bey, who thought that Sultan Murad was planning to capture the city and eliminate him, sent his wife Murad's daughter Nefise Hatun as an envoy. Upon her request, Sultan Murad pardoned Aladdin Beg, accepted his request for peace, and granted him his homeland in exchange for becoming an Ottoman vassal. Thus, the Osmanids emerged victorious in the confrontation between the most powerful forces in Anatolia, the Osmanids and the Karamanids. As a result of this war, all other principalities, including the Karamanids, recognized the superiority of the Ottomans. When the Ottomans started their conquests in Rumelia, the Balkan states were completely deprived of political stability. The Slavic elements such as the Bulgarians, Serbs and Bosnians, who constituted a large mass in the Balkans, could not put aside their differences and unite firmly to resist the Turkish conquest. Thanks to Sultan Murad's ingenious policy in the region, they were kept in separate parts and the plans for the conquest of these countries continued without interruption. After the conquest of Bulgaria and Upper Macedonia, stirrings began to appear, especially among the Serbs. Although the growing danger aroused the Serbs' sense of united resistance, the fear of the Ottoman power made it no more than an intention. At that time, the Serbs also lacked a strong leader. The Serbian king Lazar alone could not be the founder and leader of the Balkan alliance. He had already been forced to accept Ottoman protection. He could only join an alliance by looking for an opportunity. It was around this time that the Bosnian king Tvrtko started to work as the leader of the Balkans. The Bosnian king increased his population in his neighborhood with independence from the year 763 onwards and seemed to establish Bosnian sovereignty, especially on the shores of Dalmatia. The title of King of Bosnia and Serbia was assumed by Tvrtko, and his rule on the Dalmatian coast was recognized by the Venetians. Tvrtko saw that the Ottoman danger was fast approaching and, encouraged by his successes in his own neighborhood, he tried to establish a common front against the Turks. Another event that encouraged the Balkan Christians, and especially the King of Bosnia in this regard, was the encouragement of the Serbs by the Karamanids and the alliance between them. Although Sultan Murad was carefully following the stirrings in the Balkans, he considered the Karamanids, who were the instigators of the Balkan Christians, more important than the Balkans, and decided that it was time to break this boil head by making the Karaman expedition first. When the Karamanids were defeated in a short time and peace was secured in Anatolia, a force of 20,000 men under the command of Timurtash Pasha was mobilized against the Kingdom of Bosnia. While Timurtash Pasha was advancing towards the Bosnian territory, Tvrtko and Lazar united and formed a force of 30,000 men. A 30,000-strong Serbian and Bosnian force led by Lazar and Tvrtko encountered the Ottoman force led by Timurtash Pasha at Plochnik in the valley of the Topluka stream, which flows into the Morava River at the foot of the Danube, and badly defeated the Turks. Only 1/5 of the 20,000-strong Turkish force survived the defeat. The bitter defeat of the Ottoman forces at Plochnik caused a general rejoicing among the Balkans, who had been stunned by the Turkish blows for years. The Balkans felt a new vitality in their own selves. Thus, the joint success of Tvrtko and Lazar caused not only the Slavs under their rule, but also the Bulgarian, Wallachian, and even some Albanian princes to unite against the Ottomans. The alliance of the Balkan Christians, which had been secretly prepared before the defeat at Plochnik, was now fully realized. All Serbian nobles began to rally around Lazar after this victory, and the Bosnian king Tvrtko was able to unite the forces of some Serbian beys together with the Bosnians. Some Albanian beys, including the Kastriati, joined this alliance. The Bulgarian king Shishman renounced his loyalty to Sultan Murad and announced that he would send troops for the common cause. The Wallachian ruler also assured that he would send troops. The Venetians also supported this alliance against the Ottomans on paper. In addition, some Hungarian frontier commanders also declared their participation in this alliance. Thus, a strong coalition was formed against the Ottomans. Sultan Murad, who learned that the Christians had formed a broad alliance after the Plochnik incident, took action both to prevent the danger arising from this alliance and to avenge the Plochnik disaster. He tried to minimize the power of the Balkan alliance through military and political means. With political measures, he prevented the Albanian Prince Balsa from joining the alliance. On the other hand, in order to prevent the Bulgarians from uniting with the other allies and to prevent the Ottoman protectorates from joining the other side, he dispatched Vizier-i-Azam Chandarli Ali Pasha with a force of 30,000 men against Bulgaria. When Chandarli Ali Pasha, a powerful figure and a good commander like his father, Chandarli Halil Hayreddin Pasha, moved to Bulgaria in the spring of 1388 on the orders of Sultan Murad, He had the task of both preventing the Bulgarians from joining the Balkan alliance and thus completing the conquest of Bulgaria. While Sandarluzade Ali Pasha was moving to Bulgaria, Sultan Murad was confronted with a request from Theodoros, the youngest son of the Eastern Roman Emperor Ioannis and the despot of Peloponnese. Theodoros wanted military support from Sultan Murad. In response, Sultan Murad ordered a number of Ottoman soldiers to be sent to the Peloponnese to defend and protect the Eastern Roman population against the Frankish barons. Thus, Ottoman troops entered the Peloponnese for the first time. After his departure from Edirne, Chandarli Ali Pasha arrived in front of the city of Pravadi. The city was captured with a night attack. Then the city of Shumnu was captured. After taking Shumnu and its environs, Ali Pasha moved in the eastern direction. Although he wanted to capture the city of Varna on the Black Sea coast, he turned back after encountering resistance there and upon the request of the Genoese, who were friends of the Ottomans. This time, he marched on the capital city of Tarnova. After a short battle, this city was also captured. After Tarnova, Ali Pasha continued his operations northward in the direction of Danube. The Bulgarian king Shishman was locked in Nibolu, one of the important and fortified cities on the banks of the Danube. Since it was easy to bring supplies to Nibolu via the Danube, it was possible for it to withstand the Ottoman forces for a long time. Ali Pasha then captured the cities of Silistra and Rushuk. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad had arrived in Bulgaria with his army. Ali Pasha and Sultan Murad's army met in front of Nibolu. Seeing the giant Ottoman armies at his doorstep, Fat King had no choice but to surrender. Fat King was brought before the Sultan and asked for forgiveness. Sultan Murad then pardoned him. The Bulgarian king accepted to be the Ottoman governor of Bulgaria and kept his position. Thus, Bulgaria was brought under complete subordination, and the Bulgarian front of the Balkan alliance was dealt a major blow. The possibility of the Bulgarians joining Ansuz's Balkan alliance and striking the Ottoman forces from the side was thus prevented. Sultan Murad then ordered all Ottoman forces to gather under his command. In addition, he sent envoys to other Anatolian principalities and asked for the support of Muslims against the enemy army. Karamanids, Girmianids, Saruhanids, Aydunids, Menteşe, Hamid and Isfendiyarids also responded to Muradi Hudavendigar's call. The Serbian king Lazar, who had played a role in the preparation of the Balkan alliance together with the Bosnian king Tvrtko at the time when the Islamic armies started to move from Anatolia towards Rumelia, started to show urgency for the struggle, thinking that it would be Serbia's turn following Ali Pasha's campaign that resulted in Bulgaria being completely under Ottoman rule. The conquest of Bulgaria meant that the situation for Serbia had become serious. Seeing this, Lazar, while planning the capture of strategic positions, was also trying to renew and strengthen the unity among his allies. He sent men to the king of Bosnia and Albania, informing them that the danger was growing and approaching, and that if measures were not taken to resist together, their countries would be in the same situation as Bulgaria tomorrow. As the number of those who joined the Balkan alliance increased, Lazar became more and more self-confident and, as a result, began to defy Sultan Murad. The envoys sent by the Serbian king to Sultan Murad confirmed Lazar's defiant behavior with their words and actions. After Sultan Murad, the strong commander-in-chief, gave the necessary answer to the envoys of the Serbian king, he set off with his army from Plovdiv in the direction of Serbia. Taking his sons Pashas, Sanjak Beys and Anatolian Beylik soldiers with him, Sultan Murad led his army to the Kosovo plain and found a huge Balkan army in front of him. During the night, Sultan Murad convened the war council. Sandarli Ali Pasha, Prince Yildirim Bayezid, Ghazi commanders Timurtash Pasha and Ghazi Evrenos Bey prepared the battle plan. As for the Crusader army, they confidently prepared a battle plan due to the effect of unity, the fact that the battle would take place in a region they knew, their superiority in weapons and numbers, the fact that their army was rested and the Ottoman army was tired after a long march. That night, Sultan Murad retreated to his tent and prayed to his Lord until morning. He opened his hands to the heavens and prayed, "O Lord, for the water of the Prophet's face, for the blood that flowed in Karbala, for the eyes that wept on the night of separation, for the face that crawled on the path of your love, for the sorrowful hearts of the afflicted, and for the cries that affect the souls, make your grace with us and keep us under your protection. O Lord, help the people of Islam. Keep the hand of the enemy away from us. Look not at our sin, but at our sincere and heartfelt cry. Do not let your mujahideen perish and do not target them with enemy arrows. Keep Islam away from dangers. Do not make vain the prayers we have prayed all these years and the battles we have fought for the sake of religion. Do not make my name miserable and my face black in public. Do not let the land of Islam be trampled underfoot. Do not make it a place where people live in shame. O Lord, I know that your favors for the people of Islam are many. Show these favors in this war as well. If martyrdom is possible in the way of religion, grant me martyrdom so that I may reach a happy place in the hereafter." On a rainy Kosovo morning in June of the 3rd century, the Islamic army under the command of Sultan Murad Hudavendigar prayed the morning prayer and set up for battle. On the right flank of the Ottoman army were Prince Yildirim Bayezid and Ghazi Evrenos Bey, and on the left flank were Prince Jacob Çelebi and the soldiers of the Anatolian principalities. Sultan Murad was at the center of the army. There were janissaries in front of the central forces and cannons in front of them. On the advice of Evrenos Bey, 1,000 archers from the Hamid Principality were deployed in front of the right and left flanks of the army. At the center of the alliance army was the Serbian despot Lazar, on the right flank his nephew and son-in-law Brankovic, and on the left flank the forces of the Bosnian king Tvrtko. The enemy forces consisted of Serbian, Bosnian, Hungarian, Wallachian, Albanian, Polish, and Czech forces. The exact number of forces on both sides is unknown. However, according to Ottoman sources, the Allied army was several times larger than the Ottoman army. The battle began with the firing of Serbian cannons. The archers deployed on the instructions of Evrenos Bey were ordered to move forward. Turkish bows had a longer range than European bows. For this reason, the Allied army could not respond in the same way with arrows. The central cavalry unit of the Allied army responded by riding towards the Turkish archers. This cavalry charge was stopped by the Ottoman center and right flank. The Serbian cavalry suffered many casualties. However, the attack on the Ottoman left flank was successful, and the right wing of the Allied army pushed the left wing of the Ottoman army back to the camps. Anatolian troops under the command of Prince Jacob Çelebi needed help. The left flank was about to disintegrate and retreat. Muradi Hudavendigar, who stood on a high hill and saw this situation, sent a message to his son, Prince Yildirim Bayezid, ordering him to come to the aid of his brother Jacob Çelebi. But it was very difficult to do so, because it was necessary to break through the front and cross to the left flank, which was very dangerous. However, Bayezid, one of the bravest men history has ever known, left the command of the right flank to Evronos Bey, and with his cavalry at his command, he broke through the Bosnian forces of 20,000 Bosnians, crossed the battlefield, and came to the rescue of the left flank. When the Anatolian soldiers saw Prince Bayezid crashing into the enemy in front of them with the speed of a lightning bolt, they regained their courage, which had been broken, and began to attack en masse and crush the panic-stricken enemy army. Muradi Hudavendikar, who was watching this situation from the hill, was proud of his son and said to his pashas, "This boy was not nicknamed Yildirim for nothing." Yildirim Bayezid's sudden attack had changed the fate of both the battle and the Ottoman Empire. With Bayezid's help, the soldiers who came to the Jugusha managed to repel and drive away the enemy on the left flank. Upon this retreat, the Bosnian soldiers on the left flank of the Allied army also began to withdraw from the battlefield. While Yakub Çelebi pursued the fleeing enemy with his Anatolian troops, Yildirim Bayezid and his cavalry rushed to the aid of the center and pinched Lazar's cavalry army, which was left alone. Realizing that the situation was defeat, the other soldiers of the Allied forces did not rush to Lazar's aid and left the field. The Serbian soldiers who were trapped in the Ottoman center were destroyed by the Ottoman soldiers. The Battle of Kosovo lasted for 8 hours and was a very bloody and arduous struggle. The outcome of the battle was a decisive Ottoman victory. While the Sultan was thinking about his victory, he was taking care of his fallen soldiers, helping them and giving them water. Suddenly, the cry of a Serbian soldier was heard in the middle of the Kosovo square. This person who wanted to go to the Sultan was a Serbian nobleman named Milos Obilic. He said that he wanted to become a Muslim and wanted to congratulate the Sultan. Muradi Hudavendikar signaled to his soldiers and allowed him to come to him. Looking at Milos with forgiving eyes and human feelings, Sultan Murad was suddenly surprised. With a sudden movement, Milos took out a dagger from his clothes and plunged it into Murad Khan's chest. Seeing this action, the Sultan's private soldiers tore Milos Obilic to pieces on the spot. Immediately a tent was set up where he was wounded. When Sultan Muradi Hudavendikar saw his son Yildirim Bayezid crying as he was breathing his last breaths, he said, "This is not the time to cry, son. I had asked Allah for martyrdom and the Almighty accepted my prayer. My place is yours. Do not make Muslims miserable. Show them your justice and generosity. The capital of Sultanate is justice. The reign is not comfortable. Try to leave a good name in the world. May your deeds be worthy of your glory." Then he turned to his pashas and soldiers and made the following testament that would be a lesson for all future statesmen in Ottoman history. Do not dismount. After these words, Muradi Hudavendikar, the third Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, died as a martyr in the battlefields where he spent his life. May Allah have mercy on him.